Today, there are 2 million descendants of French-Canadian immigrants living in New England. These are our stories. Welcome to the French-Canadian Legacy Podcast.
Venez tous jeunes filles et garçons, je vais vous raconter l'histoire de notre immigration ici au USA, de grands aventuriers, de pays étrangers.
Bonjour everyone, this is Melody and we're back with French-Canadian news. We'll start with an article about the Franco Center in Lewiston, Maine from the Sun Journal titled, Financial Woes Could Force Franco Center to Close. Due to these financial woes, the Franco Center hopes to raise over $80,000 in the coming weeks that would tremendously help us in our efforts to bring performances, history education programs, and keep the former St. Mary's Church in good shape. If you'd like to donate to the Franco Center, there are 2 ways to donate that will be linked in the description of this episode. Speaking of helping the Franco Center, they have an escape room. In another Sun Journal article titled, Capturing History at the Franco Center's New Escape Room, the Franco Center's challenge locks up willing participants in a space and then requires them to answer questions with the help of clues in order to escape. Organizers say young and old, families and business groups alike are enjoying the experience. If you're a regular within the Franco-American community, you probably have a really good chance of escaping because the game's questions and clues are all about Franco-American history. Check out the full article for more. In an article from Franco-American News and Culture by Juliana LaRue titled, Maine Franco-American Catholics and Church History, LaRue says that Franco-Americans will appreciate remembering the history of Maine's Roman Catholic leadership when French Bishop Jean Levivre de Cheroux was appointed in 1798 as the first bishop of Boston when this responsibility included Maine. Check out the article for more. And now on to events. On June 13th at 4 p.m., visit the Portland Museum of Arts with a bilingual tour with Alliance Francaise of Portland, Maine. This event is free for Alliance Francaise du Portland members. For more info, contact afdume@gmail.com. On June 22nd from 3 to 7 p.m., check out the Leominster French-Canadian Festival, where you'll find plenty of French-Canadian foods and other vendors. Joseph Bolton, the organizer behind this festival, was a recent guest on FCL, so be sure to learn more about the Leominster French-Canadian Festival in that interview. That's all I've got for you this time. Everything I've covered today will be linked in the French-Canadian Legacy Podcast episode description. Merci for listening.
Thank you, Melody. Now, one of the really fun developments, actually, since we first started this podcast was the creation of the Nous Foundation down in New Orleans. And since they started, I think a lot of the listeners of this program know how quickly they have grown. What they are achieving on a regular basis down there is truly amazing and incredibly impressive. And I mention that because a really exciting development has been the first expansion of the Nous Foundation. It is now Nous Detroit. It's kind of like a little satellite office in the Detroit area, which is a really terrific place to host it because, as we've spoken about before on this podcast, that region, the Midwest, has a terrific Franco-American history. And it's a story that's not told nearly enough. So it was very, very exciting when I found out that Nous was going to be expanding to Detroit. And so we were able to do a whole episode speaking with Mélissa Baril about Nous Detroit. She's the person behind a lot of that project and how it came to be and what they're looking to do. Again, super exciting. Anytime you see Nous expanding, you know it's going to be awesome. So next week, we're talking to Mélissa Baril of Nous Detroit. Because one thing I did take note of in my handy-dandy notebook here, you said you were from Victoriaville. Yes. Originally. My question becomes then, who invented poutine?
That's the big question, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I would say it's not Victoriaville. I would probably say Warwick people.
Really? Okay.
Yes. But yeah, what's the best squeak cheese? That's a good question. There's a super book about fromage en grains. Written by Pascal Lévesque. So
sure.
If you have a chance to get that book, then she tested almost every fromage en grains from the province of Quebec, and she would tell you which one is her favorite. So Yeah.
That's all. Yeah, I've had a chance to meet Pascal. I'm hoping, never in person though. I'm hoping it's happening. Maybe even this Poutine Fest. I think that'd be really, really neat.
Yes.
And I bring that up because I have friends of mine who I met through the podcast who are from Drummondville.
Yes.
And they've
It's
taken
a big competition.
That's it. They take me
Yeah.
to Roy Juice Up and they tell me this is the place I invented poutine. Don't listen to what anybody from Victoriaville says about the invention of poutine. This is the real place.
Yeah, and well, no, I would probably agree more on Victoriaville, but I do think it's Warwick.
That's
Victoriaville. Yeah.
That is very, very fun. Now, just finally on this, do you and your family, are you guys into sports at all?
I was a big fan of hockey, so
Okay.
I had friends playing for the Tigers, les Tigres de Victoriaville, and then even the AAA, so AAA team in Warwick. So I would go at a game on a Friday night in Warwick, and then to the Tigers on the Saturday night.
That's awesome. So as a result, does your family hate the Boston Bruins?
Well, I'm a fan of the Canadian, of course.
I would think so. Yeah, that makes sense. But how about, does your husband follow any of the rugby? Because the Rugby World Cup is about to start in France this week coming up.
He prefers football, soccer.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I understand. That can't be perfect. Rugby's my favorite sport. And I was super hyped, and because France is going into that World Cup, probably the betting favorite, which is really, really cool for rugby. But awesome, Melissa, this was very, very fun. I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you very much, Jesse. It was a really great experience. I'm glad we discussed all this.
Now our fathers look at us and sigh with despair, to think that everything they love we simply do not share. But the spirit never dies, our culture will survive. Each of us must choose how much to keep alive. Each of us must choose how much to keep alive.
Special thanks to Josie Vachon for providing the music. You can find more about her at josievachon.com. This podcast was produced and edited by Mike Campbell. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at fclpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at FCL Podcast for more information about the topics discussed. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this episode.